Hello and welcome to ESG 302 Services and ScanPoint. I am your trainer, HMIS System Lead Tricia Cano. During this training, we will learn how to apply services that are provided to your clients you serve, as well as how to apply multiple services and services to multiple clients using the ScanPoint module. Please note that if you have any questions, feel free to contact the HMIS Help Desk via email at hmissupport@cir.org or by phone or text at 602-908-3605. Thanks, and let's get started. Once you log on to HMIS or ServicePoint for homeless prevention or rapid rehousing projects, you should get into Enter Data As mode to the appropriate project before you start recording services. To get into Enter Data As mode, click on the Enter Data As link in the upper right-hand corner of the screen and choose the appropriate project from the list. As we were using in our previous classes of ESG 300 and 301, we will use Rapid Rehousing Apache in our example today. Also, if you are recording services that did not take place today, we recommend that you use backdate mode for consistency. So since we were working on a client who was in the project from October through December, let's backdate and say that shortly after the client enrolled back on October 5th, 2015, we provided some case management services for them. So I'm going to backdate and say the very next day on October 6th, 2015 is when we met. Set backdate. And now I'm going to record a case management service on my client. Go to the Client Point module on the left-hand side of the screen to search for your client. Remember, if you're working with a family, this should be done on the head of household. If you know your client's ID number, you can type it in 2828 and search for them that way. Once you're on your client's record, locate the Service Transactions tab and click on it. Before I show you how to actually enter the service, I'm just going to explain what all these buttons mean and which ones you should be using. Add need is very, very rarely used anymore. This is when you just add a need, but there was no service transaction. There's no need to use this for homeless prevention or rapid rehousing projects. The Add Service button is what you're going to push to add one service to this one client, and I'll demonstrate this in a few minutes. Add Multiple Service button is how you add more than one service to this one client, and I will show you that as well. Add Referrals is where you would add referrals on a client. This is when a client has needs that your agency cannot provide. It is not required that homeless prevention or rapid rehousing projects record referrals in HMIS, though if you're interested, this can be covered in the case management series. View Previous Service Transactions just looks at a history of services that were recorded. View Shelter Stays is for shelters who use the ShelterPoint module. And then View Entire Service History will show you all the services and or referrals that have ever been recorded on this client for your agency. Now let's do a demonstration of adding one service to one client, and we will add a case management type service. So from the Service Transactions tab, click on the button Add Service. If this is a family, leave only the head of household checkmarked. Ensure the service provider is correct and that your start and end date of the service is also correct. These usually auto-populate, but if for some reason the end date is not populated, please be sure and put an end date there and never leave a service open-ended. Next, you will see the service type quick list. Keep in mind that this is called the Service Code Quick List, and ESG projects should not use this Service Code Lookup button simply because the Service Code Quick List has been specifically created for all ESG projects. Ask your supervisor if you should ever need to deviate from this pre-populated list. So we're going to choose Case Care Management, and once you choose the service type, then click the Save and Continue button in the bottom right corner. You will be directed to another screen, and the top of this screen just reiterates what you just entered, and you can make any changes if you needed to. There's a place to put service notes. These would be directly related to the service. This would not be where you would put some sort of progress note or actual case management note. It would just be a short note directly related to this service on this client. There's a service cost area. This is not required of homeless prevention or rapid rehousing projects, though some agencies use it to document if they're paying for 1 month or 2 months, things like that. If this was a service that was a financial type, we would add in the funding source, but case management is not a financial type service, so we can skip that section. And we're going to scroll all the way down to the bottom. One more step before we're done is in the need information, we need to update the status of this. So right now, the need status says identified. And when recording services, we always need to change this to closed. And then the outcome of the need should always be changed to fully met. What this means is that a client had a need for case management this day, but we have met their need and now it is closed, at least for today. Once you change need status to closed fully met, then you can click Save and Exit in the bottom right-hand corner, and you have recorded one service of case care management for your client. And it shows you in this preview pane the service recorded, or you can click on the tab Entire Service History, and it shows you they had a need for case management, and you met that need with the service of case management. Now, the next example I'm going to show you is how to add multiple services to the client. So let's click this button in the bottom right that says Back to Dashboard. And let's change our back date. So let's say that's next time we're going to help the client and we're going to give them rental assistance and utility deposit assistance. And it's going to start when they moved into their apartment on 11/5. So I'm going to change my back date to reflect the day that we actually assisted the client with rental and utility assistance. And this time from the Service Transactions tab, instead of clicking Add Service, I'm going to click Add Multiple Services because I'm going to add 2 services to this client. Again, if you're working with a family, you should only record it on the head of household, so do not include the other members. Ensure your provider and your start and end date for the service are correct. Don't worry that a service for rental assistance, even though you're covering a month of rent, you do not have to have the start and end date cover a month. This just indicates the day that they were given the rent check. Then we go down and we have to select the service type. So let's do rental assistance first. So we're going to do rent payment assistance. And because this is a financial type assistance, we need to document the amount of rent assistance we gave them. So we will click this button that says Add Funding Source, and we will choose the appropriate funding source from this list. In this case, we will choose DES ESG, but if it was funded by a different funding source, you could choose it. Once you choose the source, then over here to the right of that source name, you should type in the amount of the check. Let's say it was $750. Then click Calculate. And finally, we need to change the status of this service to closed and the outcome to fully met. But we want to add an additional service of utility deposit. So instead of saving and exiting, I can add another service at the same time by clicking this Add Another button. And when I do that, it expands my screen so I can add in another service. So the next service we provided them on the same day was utility deposit assistance. It is a financial type, so I need to add a funding source. So click Add Funding Source and choose the appropriate funding source from the list by clicking the green plus sign next to their name, and type in the amount that you assisted them and click Calculate. So we said we gave them $100 for a utility deposit. Change your need status to closed and the outcome to fully met. And you could continue to do this until every service the client was provided is recorded. Once all your services you provided on this day of 11/5/2015 are recorded, then go ahead and click Save and Exit in the bottom right corner. And now you can see our client has 2 additional services. November 5th, $100 utility deposit assistance and $750 rent payment assistance. Okay, now let's talk about ScanPoint. So I'm going to get out of backdate mode. Go to your menu on the left and click on the ScanPoint module. ScanPoint is how you can record a service for multiple clients. This won't happen very often in rapid rehousing or homeless prevention, but we do want you to know how to do it and have the option. So for instance, let's say you were doing a class or some kind of group activity where you had several people come in and you taught them, housing search tips, something like that, just as an example. So you wanted to record that service that you provided to 3, 4, 5 people all at one time. So this is a nice shortcut. Your provider, because we're still in Enter Data As mode. Now I didn't get into backdate mode, so it's defaulting to today's date. So I need to change that. Let's say this class happened, and change backdate. The class happened on November 20th, 2015. And I will refresh by clicking the ScanPoint button again, and now my start and end date have changed. So we said we're doing a class about how to search for apartments. So let's click Housing Search Assistance, which is a non-financial type. Keep that in mind. You really can't use ScanPoint for financial services because the amount you give people is probably different. But for non-financial, like case management and housing search and things of that nature, if you provided that same service to more than one person on the same day, ScanPoint is the way to go. So we have our project, our service type, our start and end date of 11/20. Now we have to tell the system who received these services or who attended the classes. So down in the bottom right-hand corner of ScanPoint, you're going to see 3 buttons. Let me explain what these are. Start Scan is one method of adding clients to this service, and you add them one at a time. Choose Clients from a client list is how to add clients to this service from a list that you have to create ahead of time. And Choose Clients from a unit list is how you add clients to this service using a unit list. Now, homeless prevention and rapid rehousing can never use this third option, Choose Clients from a unit list, because you don't use the ShelterPoint module. But you can use either of these other 2. Let me demonstrate Start Scan, adding the clients one at a time first. So click the Start Scan button. Scan ID cards pop-up window will come up. However, your client does not have to have an ID card or a barcode to utilize this. You can search for the clients that attended your class or that received this service on this day, either by their client ID number right here, or you can expand the client search area at the top and search for the clients that attended your class or received this service today by their name. I'll show you both ways. So first, let's say the client that we were working with earlier, which is test client ESG, attended the class. I'll search by their name. There they are, and I will choose to add them to the service by clicking the green plus sign next to their name. Once I do that, it pulls them down into my clients entered area. Now I'll demonstrate how to add clients to the list just by their ID number. So another client who came today and talked about how to search for housing was 48985. And just by typing in their name and clicking the enter button on my keyboard, they were added to the list. Here they are, 48985. Let's see, who else came? 49124 also came, and instead of clicking enter on my keyboard, I can click scan barcode, and this also adds a client to the list. And you would continue to do this until you had documented, like I said, everyone who came to your class or everyone who received that service on that day. Once everyone is accounted for at the bottom, and keep in mind, if you make a mistake and add the wrong person, you can delete them right here. But once everyone is accounted for, you've done it, you've recorded the service for them, and so you just exit this session by clicking exit in the bottom right-hand corner. And when you do that, that service was applied to those 3 clients. A service of housing search assistance on 11/20. Now, let's talk about the other option, which is choose clients from client list, just in case you're interested in this. Now, to choose clients from a client list to apply the service to, you have to create the list ahead of time. So scroll up to the top and find the tab that says Manage Client Lists. And then you have to create the list, this first time only. So click Create New Client List, and you have to name the list. So let's just say ESG 302 Training List. You would name it whatever makes sense for you. The project that every client who attended the class is associated with, then click Save and Continue. And now you have to tell the system who should be on the list. Which clients are you working with? Like, what's your caseload, or who yet regularly attends classes, things like that. And you can search for your clients either with their client ID number right here, or you can click search and search for them by name. I will show you both ways. I'll show you client ID first. So let's say that 49124, and then I can click enter on my keyboard, and there is my client on my list. Or I can say 48822 and then click add new client to list, and they are also added to the list that way. Or finally, I can do client 36573, etc. Now, if you don't know your client, the client ID number, and you prefer to look for them by name, just click this search button and you can search for them by their name. So earlier we were working with test client, oops, I skipped too far, ESG, search, and there they are. Select them by clicking the green plus sign. And you didn't see it, but they were added in the background. And so once you were done, you could click exit, and there you can see test client ESG is added to my list. Once everyone who would attend your class is added, let's add just one more here, 48985. Okay, so we have 5 people on the list. Once everyone you want on your client list is added, you can exit, and now you have a list ready to go with 5 people. Keeping in mind that this list would have to be updated if someone exits the project or a new person enters. But now that we have a client list created, we can go back to Provide Service tab and record that service again with multiple clients. So let's do the same service, Housing Search Assistance, on 11/20. And this time, instead of using Start Scan, we'll use Choose Clients from a client list. There's the client list we created ahead of time. Click the green plus sign to choose it. And now you're given the option of check marking the names of the clients who attended your class or that received services that day. If everyone on your list receives services, you can click Check All Clients. Then click Enter Service for Clients, and it will apply that service of Housing Search Assistance to all 5. Click OK to confirm that services were entered, and that is how you use ScanPoint. I will go now and prove to you that ScanPoint recorded those services correctly. So if we go and we look at the client that we've been working with all along, Test Client ESG, click on your Service Transactions tab, and then click on our View Entire Service History. Oh wow, look at all those services ESG client has. So here is the 2 we recorded through ScanPoint on 11/20. See that? 11/20 Housing Search Assistance, 11/20 Housing Search Assistance. Those were the 2 examples we did. Now, let's say we made a mistake, which we just did, and we recorded 2 services that are the exact same thing on the exact same day. That's a mistake. We should only have 1 service per day. So if you needed to delete a service because you made a mistake, you can delete the service and the need, but it's faster to delete it at the need level because then it will automatically delete the service as well. So if you had this situation where you accidentally recorded something twice on the same client, just pick one of them to get rid of by clicking the little trash can next to the word need. And it's saying, are you sure you want to delete this need? 1 service is attached and it will be deleted as well. And you're going to say delete, and it's gone. And now there's just 1 service recorded on 11/20. Okay, to reiterate a few key points we covered today and so that you do well on your quiz, let's go over a summary of what we covered. So this is ESG 302, Services and ScanPoint. First of all, when wanting to record a service to a client's profile, you will do so on the Service Transactions tab. Next, when adding a service, the start and end dates auto-populate, but make sure the dates are correct. Do not leave a service transaction open. The service type list has been set up for ESG, Rapid Rehousing, or homeless prevention projects specifically. Please do not deviate from the populated list by using the Service Code Lookup button. The need status of a service should always be set to closed, and the outcome of a service should always be set to fully met. When wanting to record services to multiple clients at once, you will use the ScanPoint module. When using the ScanPoint module, there are only 2 options that can be used by Rapid Rehousing or homeless prevention projects. Option 1 is the Start Scan button. This can search for each client by name or social or by Hmas ID number. Option 2 is the Choose Clients from Client List option. You must first create the client list ahead of time through the Manage Client List tab, and then you can apply the services to clients on that list. Remember, the Unit List option cannot be used by Rapid Rehousing or homeless prevention projects. And finally, when wanting to review or make corrections on existing services, you will go to your client's profile and locate the Service Transactions tab. And from there, click on the View Entire Service History button to view all services ever recorded, or if you need to make a correction like deleting a duplicate service. If you have any questions or need assistance, please feel free to contact the HMIS Help Desk via email at hmissupport@cir.org or by phone or text at 602-908-3605. Thank you, and please refer back to your training confirmation email for further instructions.